Hi everyone, and welcome to the first presentation that I'll be doing and posting on D2L. This isn't so much the first topic that we'll be covering. This is more kind of an introduction to the class that I'm going to talk a little bit about the syllabus, and if I can figure out the technology, I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about the GTD assignment, hopefully being able to get online during this presentation and show you a little bit of some of the things to expect and some tricks and tips for how to complete that assignment. I wanted to first, though, talk a little bit about the class, make sure that I clarify everything. Hopefully I've done a good enough job between the syllabus and the discussion board, but I wanted to also talk about it a little bit here because I think sometimes it's easier for me to express what I'm looking for verbally than in writing. And sometimes it's easier for people to understand it if they hear it from me as opposed to just reading it. So this first page or slide is basically just my contact information. Email is a pretty good way to get a hold of me. I usually respond fairly quickly. I am in Stillwater on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and am in my office during my office hours, which are Tuesday and Thursday from 12 to 1:30 and 3:30 to 4. So if you are in Stillwater and want to chat, feel free to come by. If you are not in Stillwater, feel free to use that phone number there. That's my office number, 405-744-2696. If you have any questions that you want to talk about in person or over the phone, that's fine. Email's also great. But I also want to encourage you, if you have questions about an assignment or something that other people might benefit from, try to use the discussion board, because then I can answer it there and everybody can benefit from both your question and the answer. There are, as you'll see in the syllabus, several books that we'll be reading in the course. The first response a lot of people have is freaking out about the amount of reading, and there is a lot of reading. It's a graduate course, and although it's an online course, I'm treating it the same way I would a class where we meet physically on campus. I'm not going to cut down on the readings just because it's online. If anything, I would feel obligated to add more because you don't also have the responsibility of being in class. But this is basically the same syllabus I used last spring in the terrorism class I taught in Stillwater, the graduate course I taught there. So we're going to be reading 7 books, and the main one that you should be focusing on getting now, if you haven't already gotten them, is Hoffman's Inside Terrorism, because we're going to be reading from that the first couple of weeks. We're not going to be reading from any of these others until week 3. So if you don't already have these books, if bookstores don't have them and you haven't had a chance to get them yet, please make that an effort pretty quickly, at least to get the first few that we're going to be using. The Burke book we won't actually be using until the very last week, so that's probably the lowest priority of all 7 of these, but we will be reading a good chunk of all of these, as well as some articles and other things that I've posted on D2L. If you have any issues getting any of these books, if for some reason one is out of print, I don't think you should have any problems, because like I said, these are the same books that we used just last spring. But if you do have any problems, please let me know through email or phone or the discussion board on D2L. Okay, as far as assignments are concerned, it's obviously a little bit different than how we would do it in class. I can't judge participation as easily in an online class, but I'm going to try to accommodate the online element of the classes as well as I can. The first assignment listed on here is the GTD data assignment. I'm going to talk about that in more detail later on, so I'm going to skip that right at this point. The 15% weekly D2L posts and replies, what I'm looking for here is basically a well thought out couple of paragraphs, something about the readings that intrigues you or interested you, something that you had issues with, something that wasn't clear, something that you would like to see expanded upon. These original posts should be made to the discussion board by Wednesday at noon. The purpose of these basically is to generate discussion between the students and also to sort of prepare for the lit reviews that you're going to be writing, and also for getting the most out of the lectures that I'm going to be posting. So I've posted some discussion questions that you should take a look at each week before you do the readings, and hopefully those will get you thinking about some of the things that I want to highlight during the week. But these original posts should be really kind of your own thoughts, your own ideas that stem from the readings. And as you're reading through other people's original posts, I'd like to see everybody post some well thought out replies. Those should be made by Friday at noon. So you'll have about 48 hours from the original post deadline until the reply deadline. And, you know, at minimum for a passing grade, I'd like to see everybody make one original post and one reply each week. But there's no maximum number. If you can make thorough and well thought out and you know, critical and analytical paragraphs, you know, feel free to do as many as you would like, or as many as you can. So those are sort of the main ways for me to evaluate participation and have you guys sort of direct what you learn from the class on your own. I also will have you guys do a couple more formal written assignments. 2 of these will be literature reviews, each worth 10% of your grade. These will be due also by the end of the week on Fridays. I will explain a little bit more about these in a different presentation. I also have posted an example of a literature review that I wrote on D2L to give you kind of an idea, but basically you're going to take one of the supplemental readings and evaluate it critically. Talk about what are its strengths, what are its weaknesses, how does it compare to the required readings for the week, how does it compare to some of the other readings we may have done up to that point in the semester, and it should be sort of think of it as a literature review section of a research paper. In fact, one of these 2 lit reviews that you'll each be writing, you can use as that portion of your research paper if you choose to and if it makes sense to. Not everybody's will, given the research paper topic, but you know, you're welcome to use one of those 2 lit reviews on your research paper, or part of it if it makes some sense. So please ask more questions if you have any about the lit review. Otherwise, the third main formal written assignment is the research paper. I'm going to say more about that later in the semester as well. At the very end of your syllabus is a list of terrorist groups, and essentially what you'll be doing is selecting 2 of those groups and comparing both the groups, how they behave, how they fund themselves, how they're organized, comparing those, and then also comparing how governments responded to those groups and whether government policies were successful or not. So basically you'll be comparing the terrorism and the counterterrorism in the 2 groups that you select. And you can choose 2 groups from the same country, 2 groups from entirely different regions in the world. I'm not going to be picky about which 2 groups you do. I will say that some groups, there's more research and more out there on some groups than there is on others. And so you may want to be thinking about, you know, which groups are most viable as a research topic. But other than that, I am not going to be real picky about which 2 groups you choose. And then finally there's a final exam that will be obviously a sort of take-home final, since that's the only way we can do it really in an online class. Essentially I'll post a couple of questions or a handful of questions, and you'll have a certain number of days to write your answers and submit those to D2L. They'll be fairly broad questions, topics, things that we'll have covered in the class, both in readings and discussion boards, and also probably in my lectures. And so there won't be any surprises with the final exam. And then this is just basically a print screen or a cut and paste from the syllabus, the first 2 weeks of assignments. And I just wanted to clarify here what the expectation is as far as reading. Now you'll see that in each week there are several readings. In week 1, it's the Hoffman Chapter 1, Maraghella's Mini Manual, Harman's 5 Strategies, and Murari's Terrorism as a Strategy of Insurgency. Those are the required readings, and those are what you should read for the week. Ideally, you'll have as many of those done as possible by Wednesday, so that you can post your original or make your original posts on D2L. But obviously, if you're not able to get to all of those by Wednesday, as long as you're able to make a post and finish off the readings by Friday so that you can post your replies, that's good enough. I'm not going to be real strict about having certain readings done on certain days. Wednesday's sort of the ideal since that's when posts are due. But if it takes you a little bit longer to get through readings in a week, that's understandable. You'll see under week 2, again, there are 4 required readings there: Hoffman, chapters 2 and 3, Rappaport, Fromkin, 3 readings, and then a video, which you should be able to get on D2L. If for some reason it's not there, or you have trouble opening it from D2L, just Google Battle of Algiers and you should be able to find it easily enough that way. And then you'll find a list of several supplemental readings. Now these are not required of everybody for the week. These are there if you're writing your lit review for that week. You'll want to choose one of those supplemental readings to write about. Also, if you're writing your research paper, some of those supplemental readings may be helpful in doing your research. But those are not required for everybody. So for week 2, if you're doing your lit review, you'll want to select one of these 4 to do your review on. Otherwise, everybody else is only responsible for Hoffman, Rappaport, Fromkin, and then watching Battle of Algiers. And I'll say a little bit more about Battle of Algiers when we get to week 2. But I'll sorry about that if you're hearing that sound. My computer not liking what I'm doing for some reason. Anyway, like I said, I'll talk about Battle of Algiers more later, probably in my week 1 lecture, or I'll post something in week 2 about why we're watching that and what to look for in the movie. So don't necessarily jump ahead and watch it until you've had a chance to hear from me what you should be looking for in there. Okay, I did want to go over the GTD assignment a little bit, give you some tips and sort of hopefully a better understanding of what I'm looking for, what you need to be doing in the assignment. This is the website that you'll go to. It's the start.umd.edu/GTD, and this is the Global Terrorism Database. This is organized and kept up to date by the University of Maryland, the START Center, which is one of the Department of Homeland Security centers of excellence at the University of Maryland. And this is a database that has almost 100,000 terrorist attacks from 1970 up through and including all of 2010. And the assignment is intended to kind of get you comfortable with using this database, but also I'm asking specific questions and looking for specific answers to get you thinking about different aspects of terrorism. And so this will hopefully do what it's intended to do. There are some kind of tricks, some issues dealing with this database. The first thing you want to do is go to advanced search. That's the main search that you're going to be using to answer the assignment or to answer the questions from the assignment. And this is the page where you can specify all the different filters and different things to search for. And as you'll notice on the assignment, there's a note that you'll want to click on the boxes for criterion 1, 2, and 3 and select a couple of specific things. So if you click on here, terrorism criteria, you want to check all 3 of these boxes, 1, 2, and 3, and make sure that you exclude ambiguous cases, and include should already be selected. Just keep that as include. Now the reason for this is that you will get different numbers for a lot of the answers if you select different criteria or if you include ambiguous cases. And so the main reason for having this specific requirement or these specific criteria is that it's easier for me to grade and make sure that everybody got the correct answers if you all have the same criteria. And so make sure all three boxes are checked, exclude ambiguous cases, include unsuccessful attacks. Now, one of the problems will be if you do a search, let's just select all the incidents that fit those criteria. And then if you go and go back, if after you've answered a question you click up here on advanced search again, those criteria will not be selected anymore. And so you need to be careful when you click advanced search that you go back and click all three of those again, exclude ambiguous cases, include unsuccessful. Now the better way to do it than clicking advanced search again is if you go back to advanced search, this link right here, it will take you to the same place, but the terrorism criteria that you set will still be set. So back to advanced search rather than clicking on this, which is basically a new advanced search. The different questions that you'll be asked have to do with certain time frames. Here's where you can select certain years or even specific days, days and months. Most of them, I think you'll just be able to do the, a range of years. So you can choose these up here. Some of them will ask you to select specific regions or multiple regions. You just click on the box there. Some you may have to specify a country. Just click on the country and it'll show up over there. If you have to do multiple, they'll be there. You can remove them if you make a mistake. Same thing with perpetrator. Any that you select over here on the left will show up over here on the right, and you can remove them if you select the wrong one. Weapon type, again, just click the boxes that you're looking for. Attack type, all of these, whether they're suicide or non-suicide. Target type, same thing. Casualties, you can have it show you both injuries and fatalities, or you can limit it to a certain number of fatalities and injuries. Now I'm not even sure, let's see. Let's just go ahead and select all of them using this criteria. So that'll give me 73,500 incidents. And what this will show you is here's sort of the trend of all of those incidents over time from 1970 to 2010. And you can kind of see that there's an increase and then decline and then a rise again. You can also click on these. Some of them don't work if you've got too many countries, for example. It won't show it to you. But this should work. Yeah, attack type, you can see all the different attack types among those 73,000 incidents. And you can actually click on certain attack types to clear them from the screen. So if you wanted to just see this line, you could clear all the other ones by just clicking on them. And now all you've got is that. You can also change how you're viewing it, either a bar chart. This is sometimes helpful because it'll actually give you the number, whereas the line charts, it's sometimes hard to tell what the actual numbers are of each of these years. The bar chart will at least give you the total number. So, hostage taking by barricade, 701 incidents during that time period. The pie chart is just another way to look at these numbers or these incidents again. Also show you the numbers. So the bar, it always comes to the line chart by default, but a couple of the questions, it will be helpful if you look at the bar chart and the pie chart. Let's see what else is useful. This just confirms the criteria that you selected. Now this will list all of the events down here. It'll only show by default the first 20 or the most recent 20. You can increase the number that it'll show up to 100. You can also go to additional pages. If you click on any of these ID numbers, the red sort of bold-faced numbers, it will take you to information about that particular incident. So a lot of them will have a summary, tell you a little bit about what it is. and more specific data about it, the what, who, how, so the type here. It'll also give you the sources of that information, if they're news sources or whatever they may be. And then you can go back to search results, and it'll take you back to where I was before. There is one other thing I want to mention real quickly that sometimes throws people off. Let me show you this. If I go 1991 to 1994, all incidents, what you may notice here is that it skips from October 1992 to January 1994. There is no 1993 data in the Global Terrorism Database. There are a couple of questions where if you don't remember that point, it will throw your answer off. So keep that in mind, that there is no 1993 data. If you were to search only for 1993 data, it would come up with 0 incidents. I won't go into the reasons why there's no 1993 data. The information literally fell off a truck and was lost and hasn't been able to be adequately replicated, so they just leave it out of the database completely, basically is the bottom line there. So keep that in mind as you're looking at this data, particularly in the 1990s, particularly if it asks you for like an average number of attacks per year. Don't count 1993 because it's not going to give you any data for that particular year. I hope that's helpful. That should give you enough information to answer the 20 questions on the assignment. One other thing I'll show you on here that might be helpful, not so much on this particular assignment, but in the class in general, and maybe even as you're doing your research papers, is if you click on the Start homepage, this is the homepage for the Center of Excellence itself as opposed to the database. And there's several different data collections, one of which is this terrorist organization profile. And what this is this is part of the database that used to be run by the Oklahoma City Memorial, the bombing memorial, and the MIPT database that they had. And that was sort of combined into this database, but they kept this particular area, the terrorist organization profiles. And so what you can do is you can search by a particular group here, you can search by a country, you can search by their ideology. So let's say if I wanted to find a communist socialist group that operated in the United States. Actually, I'm not sure if I can click by both of those. Yeah, I think you can only select one at a time. But here's a list of communist socialist groups that are in the database, and these are all groups that have carried out at least one attack that appears in the database. And so if there's a group that you're thinking about doing your paper on, let's say continuity IRA, you could just type in that, and here's the link to continuity IRA. And it gives you a little bit of information: where they operate, where it formed, how many members are in it, what the motivation is, or what the ideology is, and some other stuff you can read through there. So this could be helpful as you're going through the list of terrorist groups in the syllabus, trying to decide on what groups to research. Most of them will be in this database if you search hard enough. Not all of them are that easy because of spelling and how they're classified in the database. But I wanted to show you that while I've got you here on the Start homepage, just because I think that would be helpful. So as always, if you have any questions about the assignment, please feel free to email or phone, or probably even better, post on the discussion board. And I think that does it.